Reflections on Building the List Builder, Part 4. And again, a list builder is the asset that you are going to trade to your prospect, to your interested party for their email. Also called a lead magnet. Stu McLaren likes to call it a list builder, but we're creating a foundational asset for our online business. This is part 4. I'm going to dive into what mine is and how I use Chat GPT to help me create it, how I weaved in podcast episodes. I was able to weave in podcast episodes, testimonials, all kinds of fun stuff. Super cool. Maybe you'll get some ideas for your list builder, your lead magnet, your foundational asset piece of your online business. All right, listen in for part 4.
You know when someone is selling from stage and at the end the audience gets up and rushes to the back of the room to buy? That's a table rush. My name is Mischa Z, and the Table Rush Talk Show is all about bringing you the tools, strategies, and tactics that you can use to grow your audience and inspire them to buy.
How fun is it too that creating these things, creating this business is giving me all kinds of cool content, all kinds of cool stories, all kinds of cool episodes, podcast episodes for me to create, how I can use it to help you with your journey. I just love it. And I also want to say, batch record your podcast episodes. If you're out there recording content, podcast episodes, you can batch record. If you want, I go on a nice long walk at least once a week, and I will, record a part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, part 1, part 2, you get it. And this just happens to be part 4, so do the same. Speed up your process. Okay, again, quickly, we want to create a top 10 questions guide that's going to answer the top 10 questions that your target audience has about this subject, which you are an expert on or becoming an expert on. So we can simply go to Chat GPT and say, hey, Chat GPT, give me the top 10 questions that coaches, online creators, online business owners have about guest speaking on podcasts. And then we're going to answer that question with a story, and we can have Chat GPT answer that question and then give a story. So we answer the question and then we give a story. So the framework of the top 10 guide is: here's the question, here's the answer, here's the story. Next question, next answer, next story. So I've got my guesting guide. The guesting guide: prepare, launch, and execute a successful podcast tour. I asked Chat GPT that, and then what you do is if you want, you can refine the document from there. So I get asked a bunch of questions all the time about going on a podcast tour, about speaking on podcasts, about podcast gear and all that. So I wove those in to the top 10 questions, and I have stories about that. And what's so cool, and really quick, I'll just give you my top 10 questions, and there's not 10, I believe there's 9, there's 8 or 9, but here's what I answer. How do I look and hold on. Number 1, how do I find relevant podcasts to guest on? I answer that, have a story. Actually, I answer it with testimonials too. Case studies. I answer it and then I give case studies. Oh my gosh, so exciting. I'll go through I'll just keep going through the questions. How do I find the right podcast to guest on that align with my message and target audience? How can I pitch myself effectively to podcast hosts? How do I keep track of all this? How do I organize this? how should I prepare for a podcast interview? What should I talk about? How do I look and sound good? How do I speak better on a podcast? What if I'm an introvert? How can I leverage my podcast appearances for social proof and increase my online authority? Let me say that again. How can I leverage my podcast appearances for social proof and increasing my online authority? And how should I follow up after the interview? I will probably maybe move the order of the last two around, but you get the idea. But here's what was so fun. So I have been doing, I've obviously done 600 plus podcast episodes, and one of the episodes I did was on how to speak better on a podcast. What if I'm an introvert? And so I was able to ask that question, answer it, and answer it with effectively the transcript of my podcast. And then I could say, click this link if you actually want to hear the podcast episode. So that's in my guesting guide. And I had Chat GPT turn the transcript, make it readable and a flow. Because if you've been listening to my podcast for a bit, you know that I can go on riffs and tangents and stuff like that. And that specific episode happened to be fairly straightforward, so that helped. But super cool. And then Stu encourages us to Stu McLaren, who I love and I follow. I'm all in on Stu McLaren. He's like, capture your stories, capture your customer stories. Any opportunity you can, capture your customer stories. So I have been doing that as I've been building the Influence Army movement. I've been getting a ton of spontaneous feedback from some of the members, which is awesome. I've been getting it on Zoom calls and this and that. So I'm cutting those parts. I'm cutting those parts out and saving them, as testimonials, as feedback, as social proof. And then I've had opportunities to have one-on-ones with some of the founding members. So I'm asking them, for testimonials and what they've learned and things like that. And it's been incredibly powerful. Sorry, someone was walking by. I got completely distracted, but I'm back with you. And hold please. So you can start using those stories in your marketing. And I've been diligently doing that. Cooper was watching me do that. Cooper's my son who's on my team now. He's all in helping me. And he's been editing those videos. But I was able to take those transcripts, and some of the testimonials spoke to some of those questions. So, how do I speak better on a podcast? Well, I told you that I use the podcast episode to help me do that. What was it? There's one. Sorry, I'm. Where's the story question? Oh my gosh. Well, there's one about stories. How do I find the right podcast to guest on that'll... Nope, that's not it. How do I prepare for an interview? What should I talk about? That question. How do I prepare for an interview? What should I talk about? So I've got my story bank framework, which is basically a framework that helps you start gathering and organizing your stories according to the customer story arcs of your life. According to the story arcs of your life. And then also we're gathering 3 types of stories: your stories, your customer stories, and your influential people stories. So the people who have been impactful in your life. And Rick Hayhurst has been using that tool to great effect. And as a matter of fact, spontaneously at 2 different times, he just gave this great feedback of how the story bank framework was helping him, how my teachings were helping him, and with his networking, with his public speaking appearances, with his confidence. It's just rather amazing. And so I was able to go to Chat GPT and say, okay, I took how it answered the question for me. I reframed it a little bit, and then I took the transcript from Rick's to testimonials, and I said, hey, Chat GPT, here's my general thoughts on how to answer this question so far. Here's a testimonials from Rick Hayhurst. Answer the question. Give me more color and flavor around my answers to this question, and then use Rick's testimonials as the story. And so, oh my gosh, so incredible how it created that. It just is so beautiful. So I'm full up on Chat GPT, using Chat GPT to help speed up your process. Leverage that tool, people. Oh my gosh. So I was doing that all over the place, referencing podcasts, referencing testimonials, using Chat GPT to help me write it. But here's the key Chat GPT secret that I would encourage everybody to use. The more flavor, color, and guidance you can give Chat GPT, the more reference you can give it, the better. And I'll tell you how I do that. So I have my main sales letter that I'm using now to promote the Influence Army. It's awesome. It basically has a great, my bio in effect, how I help people, what my vision is, how I can help my perfect customer. It paints the picture of the perfect customer. It's got their pains, their dreams, their desires, everything. And it's written in my language. It's written in my tone. Right? So powerful. So what I do is I use that as the core setup for Chat GPT. So I say, hey, Chat GPT, I have my Influence Army movement. Here's the sales letter I used to build this movement. I'm going to ask you some questions about a lead magnet that I'm creating. Reference that sales letter for, the tone, for language, my tone, etc. And then Chat GPT's got something to work with, and it's incredible. It is so powerful. That is my number one Chat GPT trick for you. Find some sales letter that you have, or write something. Take some time and write something that explains, what you do, how you do it, the pain points of your customer. It frames out your customer. Write an extensive document in your language, in your tone, how you speak. Type it out. Take that time. And then use that as the core setup for questions that you ask ChatGPT that you want to help for writing your emails, for writing your copy, for writing your guesting guide, for creating your guesting guide, your asset. Oh my gosh. I just can't even tell you. In the reflecting, so this 4-part series has been about reflecting. So reflecting, I'm using Chat GPT to be able to speed up my processes so much. It's unbelievable. 2 months ago, I was using it, but the more I use it, the more I'm able to use it to greater effect. And wow, just reflecting on that and reflecting on how I was able to use Chat GPT this week to help me create my guesting guide asset. Holy Toledo. Cooper, boy oh boy. A month ago, he was just introduced to ClickFunnels, to Canva, to all these programs all these programs I have given him administrative access to, that he's learning and embracing and just making it through massive overwhelm. Like in the last week alone, what did he learn? He learned, he really was dialing in Canva, dialing in ClickFunnels even more. I introduced him to Active Campaign, which is, the email responder, automated email program, The list of online programs, tools, and things that he has access to and has been learning, that list is getting rather big. It's amazing. So he's been crushing it with that. Oh my gosh, like I said on a previous episode, I have an asset now. I have this asset. Go out there, do what I've been talking about. Create your asset, your list builder, your lead magnet, that foundational piece of your online business that you can trade to somebody for their email address. So as you're talking to people one-on-one, as you're speaking in groups, as you're networking, as you're out in public, as you're going on your podcast tour, like you've got this asset that you can point people to. It's so empowering. So I don't know, so incredible. Hopefully you've learned something on how you can use Chat GPT as well. I am just so grateful. I'm grateful to you for giving me this platform to talk about, boy, what a week it was, this 5 days of Cooper and I creating our guesting guide, the guesting guide, the free guide to launch a successful and profitable podcast tour, my ultimate guide, my ultimate step-by-step guide to prepare, launch, and execute a successful podcast tour. Oh my gosh, thank you for giving me the space to talk about that, to talk through that process, to hopefully teach you something, to help inspire you to take some action. And 2 things, I'll end with this. Number 1, if you are not putting yourself out there, no one's going to hear what you've got to say. And number 2, the best is the enemy of good enough. The best is the enemy of more than good enough. In this space right now, in this time, speed to market is so important. Taking that messy action, not letting the little gremlins in our heads throw us off. Like, put aside the perfectionism. More than good enough is good enough. Or good enough is more than good enough. All right. Thank you, everybody. Go to guestingguide.com. You can check out my podcast, Guesting Guide.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.